Here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
your mission.
Suppose we go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream.
To be given the right of human beings to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You've certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Wednesday, August 12th, 2015. And I want to thank you for joining us this morning. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you decided to be here with us. I have to pat myself on the back and give myself a personal applause if I could. I managed to, pulling this off every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Pretty much, I have my producer who's out in Texas, who helps me out with a lot of intricate things. But I had a computer to crash this morning, and I lost all the video that I was going to use this morning. And in about 30 minutes, I redid everything just for you. I found all my video clips and pulled everything together. And here we are right at 8:01 in the morning to discuss all of the things that are happening in the news. And there are a lot of things still happening in the news. And I have to vacillate today. I have to go back and forth between international news and local news, domestic news. I want to deal with ISIS a little bit today, more from a philosophical question that I want to ask you guys, but we'll get there later on. Definitely have more information and more footage and insight on Black Lives Matter versus Bernie Sanders. Some clips of the actual woman, one of the protesters that interrupted. And she did an interview on MSNBC, so we'll get to see a clip of that and we'll dissect it. Also, want to deal with the Oath Keepers in Ferguson and the protest in general, the protest in Ferguson. A lot of the Black Lives Matter activists and people who may not be directly affiliated with them have been out there to mark August 9th. And then last but not least, in conjunction with everything else, I want to talk about this Columbia, Missouri Police Benevolent Association. Let me make sure I call them out correctly. Columbia, Missouri Police Officers Association declared August 9th Darren Wilson Day. So, you should be able to put that together. What's wrong with that? And for anyone who thinks that we have nothing to protest still, just keep in mind that they just Columbia, Missouri just declared Darren Wilson Day for August 9th. I doubt it's an official date, but the unmitigated gall of them to take the anniversary of the killing of Michael Brown and use it as a basically to insult and to cause harm and nothing else. So we'll deal with all that. But first, I want to. Actually, no, let me start right there. And I want to start with the Oath Keepers because I want people to understand what I said. A lot of people ask me if I still hold my same position that I held on Monday. Absolutely. I don't come out with a position that hasn't been well thought out and that I didn't take time to really process and labor over. Some things are easier to think about and have a position on than others. Calling out Black Lives Matter on Monday was not easy because I support them on so many levels. I mean, just go back through my library of videos and you'll see countless videos where I have defended Black Lives Matter from Bernie Sanders' fans, from other radio progressive hosts. I mean, I support Black Lives Matter. So when I come out against them on something, you better believe I've thought it all the way through, So no, I have not changed my mind in regards to what happened on Monday. Something I have to take care of something there. I haven't changed my mind because it's still the principle is still the same. The idea and the method and the reason that you do things is important, and the way that you do it is important. And I'm going to double down. Listen, I'll play the clips. and you'll see the girl from the woman from Monday, the woman from Saturday, and you'll see that she is affiliated with Black Lives Matter. A lot of people think that maybe she wasn't. So a lot of people think she was a Sarah Palin plant. All these types of things. My point on Monday still remains the same. What happened on Saturday was not strategic, unless, I'll give this caveat, unless it came down from the National Black Lives Matter organization that Bernie Sanders was being uncooperative at the negotiating table. Because you have to understand, protest is just step one. Protest, that is the very first thing that you need to do to begin a national conversation about the things that you have grievances over. The next step is getting to the table to actually implement policies that will change your conditions. If you're not trying to get to the political table and use policy and use political relationships to change your situation, then you will forever be protesting without getting any results. So hang on, let me start that sentence over again. After Netroots Nation, they had a seat at the table. They had been building. First of all, I don't want to credit Netroots Nation 100% with the progress, because Black Lives Matter has been consistent, persistent, and they have been on the scene, and they have been applying pressure all along. So because of all of their efforts previously, and then the catalyst that was Netroots Nation, their position was strengthened, and they got a seat at the table of every candidate, Democratic candidate, because Republicans aren't paying them any attention right now. Donald Trump said over the last couple of days, he said that let them try to his campaign, he'll shut them down. And I believe he would, because that's exactly what his kind of audience wants, right? So they got the attention of all of the major Democratic candidates, and they had a seat at the table. And so they should have been having conversations, and let me rephrase that, because I know that they have been having conversations, policy conversations. They have been influencing. They are in the background now. So protest is step one, and then actually building policy in conjunction with your political leaders is step two. So unless it came down from the National Black Lives Matter chapter that Bernie Sanders was not cooperating, and you, Marissa, and the other woman need to go and shut down Seattle because Bernie Sanders is not cooperating. Unless that happened, nothing about Saturday was strategic, and it was all emotional and a temper tantrum. Yes, it was a temper tantrum. So I don't apologize and don't backtrack on anything that I said, especially anything I write, because I take the time to think it all the way through before I actually open my mouth. Now, with that being said, it is difficult for me to hold that position because it's not easy to criticize someone that you agree with. But if we're going to do the right thing, we have to do the right thing all the time, and not just some of the time. We have to absolutely stand by our principles, and we can't backtrack and lay down our reason, our logic, and our principles simply because we agree with something. Doing the wrong thing for the right reason is not the way I personally operate. All that to say this: we have reasons to protest. We have reasons to be upset. We have reasons to still march. They have the nerve over in Columbia, Missouri, to declare August 9th Darren Wilson Day. They have made a hero out of Darren Wilson. Darren Wilson has made hundreds of thousands of dollars with interviews, with GoFundMe accounts, people raising money for him. He is venerated. He is a hero. And I want you to understand something, and I'll deal with this in the second segment. He is primarily a hero on the right in conservative circles. So I also want to criticize and bring critique to anyone who is saying that we should not have any type of political affiliation. That's dumb. You know why? Because your enemy, the people that you are truly trying to pull down, this white supremacy that you're really trying to stop, it is aligned and entrenched on the right. I was reading an article by a guy who aggravates the hell out of me, but I still read his stuff from time to time. I believe his name is Glenn Ford from the Black Agenda Report. He aggravates the hell out of me because he's always trying to pull black voters away from the Democratic Party completely, right? Let's not change the Democratic Party. Let's just walk away from the Democratic Party. And fine, he can believe that. I think it's silly, but he coined a phrase, and I really I think it's insightful. He described the Republican Party as terminally racist, as in a terminal illness. Republicans are not going to recover from this. They are not going to all of a sudden wake up and say, yeah, man, Black lives do matter. No, they have bought into the Southern strategy so much that they will never, probably in our lifetime, let me be reasonable, because I can't unequivocally say never, but in our lifetime, the Republican Party is not coming back from the brink. They are terminally racist, as coined by Glenn Ford. And I'll tell you other things about him and the Black Agenda Report and people from the far black left. But that's the thing. White supremacy does affect progressives. You can see it. Hell, go read comments. Go read the comments on the MSNBC post where the videos exist. Go read their Facebook pages. You can see that racism and white supremacy really does exist in progressive circles, right? But it is pervasive. It is ubiquitous. The Republican Party is drenched with it, and they are unapologetic about it. So this Darren Wilson Day, the people who are spitting in our faces, the people who we are protesting against, and the ones that we really should target and shut down completely, I guarantee you 9 out of 10 of them are aligned with conservatism. People think that by saying I'm not going to have a political affiliation, or I don't subscribe to that false dichotomy, and people love that phrase, the false dichotomy. I'm neither progressive, I'm not a liberal, and I'm not a conservative. I'm in the middle. No, please. If you don't do anything else in your lifetime, understand who you really are. If your criticism of America is that the economic system is exploitative, that there's social justice reforms that need to take place, the criminal justice reforms needs to take place. If you actually study what you believe, you will realize that you are more left-leaning than anything else. Which is why a lot of people don't understand why Black Lives Matter would protest Bernie Sanders. I understand why the first time I disagree wholeheartedly with the second time, but all that to say this: understand what you really believe. Study what you really believe, and you would realize that you are politically aligned. And to try to say, oh, I don't subscribe to that false dichotomy is pseudo-intellectualism. It is you liking the sound of your own voice. It's you trying to be outside of the political fray to impress the people who surround you. That's exactly what was the downfall of Occupy Wall Street. There is a remnant of Occupy Wall Street, but Occupy Wall Street had the positioning that it needed to affect major change in the United States of America, but they insisted on not becoming affiliated with any type of political ideology when their political critique was actually a progressive ideology. And so when you consider that, in light of the fact that the people who are trying to keep us not only socially suppressed, but economically suppressed, the people who are out there protesting you, every single one of those oath keepers, I guarantee you, every single one of the oath keepers that are out there with their guns in Ferguson right now, they're all conservative Republicans. Tea Party Republicans. I will put money. If you find an oath keeper out in Ferguson, now I'm not going to say that there are not any in the United States of America, because I know the Democratic Party has their problems, which is why we do need to protest. But out there in Ferguson with their automatic rifles, out there trying to intimidate the Black Lives Matter movement, I guarantee you they are all politically aligned with conservatism and the Republican Party. That's the simple fact of the matter. Now, you combine that fact with the fact that your criticism of the Democratic Party, your criticism of Barack Obama, your criticism of the effects of what's happening in the Black community are further to the left than Barack Obama. Then you would start to realize, well, hell, I may not want to be co-opted by a political party. I may not allow myself to be co-opted by a political party, but I do have a political ideology. And that is progressivism. And conservatism is the disease that terminal racism, as Glenn Ford coined, comes from. Now, Oath Keepers and Darren Wilson Day out of Ferguson, DeRay McKesson and Netta. I don't know Netta's last name, unfortunately, but they are. I know I saw Cornell West, Bree Newsom, the young lady who took down the flag in South Carolina. They're all over in Ferguson, and they were all over in Ferguson protesting, shutting down the city. They shut down the highway, and they're trying to bring attention to the issues that are still pervasive in Ferguson. You have to understand that the work was not finished when the first round of Ferguson was over. The work was not finished. You know, the winter came and they organized, and then they went back out there to finish the work. It's only 1 year, and there's still systemic problems there in Ferguson. So I have no qualm whatsoever. Matter of fact, they need to be there to continue the work that they started, and I applaud them for being there. I absolutely applaud them for what they're doing. And in the midst of what they were doing, not only were all of them, so many of them arrested simply for peaceful protests. And I'm not even talking about the ones that are on the highway. Listen, if you shut down a highway, don't be surprised when you get arrested. That's just part of the equation, right? Go fully knowing that you're going to get arrested. But there were other protesters who were simply having a sit-in, and about 20 of them were arrested. They were teased. The police in a lot of ways were agitating the situation. Now, these are all reports from their Twitter timelines and different articles that I read, and I believe them. I believe them because of the very principle that guides me through a lot of these conversations. The fact that police officers and a lot of white Americans have the ability to instigate a situation, and then we completely divorce the fact that they instigated the situation, that they created the problem, that they wanted a confrontation. Look at Sandra Bland. That police officer wanted a confrontation, but we completely divorce their actions from the results of their actions. So when they tell me that the police officers were out there agitating and trying to create a situation, I absolutely believe it, because that is the modus operandi, I said that wrong, the MO of so many police officers and so many white Americans. And hang on, let me add one addendum. Some black police officers. One day I'll tell you about the officer that pulled me over and did everything that he could to embarrass me in front of my family. And he was black. All of that to say this. I don't know. I think this is one of the first times I may have lost my train of thought. I went off too tangentially and lost my train of thought. But the point that I want to convey is simply this. The work still needs to be done because the agitators are still in power in Ferguson, throughout the United States of America. The provocateurs have not disappeared. You know, the people who are creating these cantankerous conditions that lead to the death of many African Americans are still entrenched in these cities and in these states. And so we can't simply lay down and say the work was done. No, they absolutely need to be out there to finish the work and to continue the work, because I don't think it's ever a end date. But in the midst of them doing that, they were now confronted by this organization called the Oath Keepers. And actually, I have video of the Oath Keepers. I want you to just take a look at this. And I want you to look at the freedom with which these guys are able to walk and do and just be. Now, people listening on the radio, there's not much audio in here, commentary. So you're just going to have to, I will narrate it for you. But people on YouTube, you can see how they're carrying. Look at this. I want you to see this and how free they are. I want you to see how these men are walking around freely. Now, the police are there arresting Black Lives Matter protesters because they are trying to keep the peace, right? And they're trying to stop provocation. What is more provoking than a group of racially motivated men with weapons. Add to that the fact that they're probably have some type of Napoleon complex where they have the need to express themselves, because many of them probably never served in the military. So now this is their time to get to dress up and play soldier, right? So you have all of these guys out here walking around there for no other reason, because do the police need help? Are the police incapable of doing their jobs? All right. If the answer to that question is no, then why are they out there in that situation? What purpose do they serve? The only purpose they serve is to agitate the situation and to try to create a confrontation that will ultimately lead to someone getting killed. That's it. They are there as agents, provocateurs. That is what they are there for. And so this is when people get mad at us calling out white privilege and white supremacy, as uncomfortable as it may be for white people to accept the fact that there is such thing as white supremacy there and white privilege, this is white privilege on display. Because imagine if this had been, and it's not just white privilege, it's conservative privilege. I'm be honest with you, because if this had been a group of white people out there for protecting Black Lives Matter, it would have been a problem. It would have been a problem. And I guarantee you, if it had been a Black organization with weapons out there to surround and protect Black Lives Matter, they would have been arrested without question, without fail. So I don't want you to start realizing that this thing is not always, it's never one dimensional. There are always different facets to it. And though while we're complaining and we're understanding the nuances of white supremacy and the fact that it exists, and we hate the fact that it exists in a party that we have been supporting for all these years, right? It does exist. Go look at any forum, go look at go look at some of the comments on the article that I wrote. Go look at some of the comments on the video I posted on Monday, and you will see that there are some progressives who have a problem with racism, just like any other identity, right? But the overwhelming vast majority of the people who are not only provoking situations, but are entrenched in these systems and simply laugh at you in your face because you believe that there's a problem. I guarantee you that they have a political ideology and they have a strong political affiliation. And so I think it's proper, and it's not even proper, it's a requirement. We must ensure that if we are going to give anyone our votes, and I don't care, when I say we, I mean everyone. If you're Black, if you're going to give someone your vote, make sure that party actually represents your best interest. If you're a woman, make sure that party represents your best interest. If you're Muslim, make sure that party represents your best interest. There is absolutely no reason for you to give your vote to any party that's not going to service your specific needs. If the Democratic Party cannot get this Black Lives Matter situation straight, then fine, let's take our vote away from them. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is very, very, very important is that the other side not only doesn't believe that there's a problem, they don't care that there is a problem, and they want to provoke even more problems. So when we try to be so philosophically pseudo-intellectuals, philosophical pseudo-intellectuals, and say that we have no political affiliation, and I'll play this clip after this break. I want you to realize that, listen, your enemies, the people who are really trying to destroy you, the people who don't care about racism, the people who love racism, the people who are dedicated to protecting white supremacy and the white male Christian power structure in America, they absolutely have a political ideology. So you need to make up your mind. Make up your mind and say, am I going to at least know who I am? And when I know who I am I going to know who my enemies really are? And we still have to get our house in order, right? Democrats don't get off, not on this, but realize who your real enemy is. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. I'll be back.
When you're ready to lose weight, why count, track, and worry over every meal? Jenny Craig makes it simple. Just walk into a neighborhood Jenny Craig center or give us a call. You'll meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Together, you'll pick out delicious Jenny Craig foods that you'll love and design a menu that fits your life. And the best part is that you can get started losing weight right away. Don't wait any longer to take advantage of our best offer ever. Call 1-800-JENNY20 or visit jennycraig.com.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
I'm making beef sliders for my friend Sandy. Nana taught me to always pull meat off the grill early so it's extra juicy.
Use a food thermometer to ensure ground beef is 160 degrees, or you could make people really sick. Sandy didn't think twice about the slider she ate until yoga class, when a nasty case of food poisoning turned her downward-facing dog into upward-moving lunch. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov and learn the steps Maria unwittingly leaves out. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer. Warm fleece on a cold day.
I want to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
That's what I try to tell him. All right, let's get into. Come on, I keep saying I have to cut that music shorter, and I really do. Let's get into some clips because I want to show you what I'm talking about. The foolhardiness of trying to keep your movement outside of the political fray, when the solutions that you seek are going to be political solutions. It will include legislation. It does include changing the hearts and minds of the people, but in a lot of circumstances, it absolutely will require legislation. So let me play a couple of clips from the Black Lives Matter, one of the Black Lives Matter founders. And then the first clip I'm going to play here is from the interview with Tamron Hall from the young woman who interrupted Bernie Sanders. All right, let's listen up. Here we go.
Far more politicians, let's say in the far right, who are less than sympathetic to your cause than a Bernie Sanders. Why attack Bernie Sanders in that way? Why not meet with Bernie Sanders? Why not attempt to find a common ground with someone who seems to be more willing to support a progressive agenda as it relates to focusing in on Black lives?
Absolutely. There's really no point in confronting the GOP, at least I think, during the primaries, because GOP members will pretty much flatly tell you that they don't care about Black lives. So instead, we really need to put pressure on people who claim that they care about Black lives, claim that they're closer. And what we saw actually with the first confrontation that Bernie Sanders had at Netroots was that he was confronted, O'Malley was confronted, and even Hillary's camp had to respond. And here, the thing is that especially on the left, candidates have this liberal rhetoric, and we really need them to match it with their words and with their actions. So the thing is if Bernie Sanders is really grassroots and he's really there for the people, then he would make room for grassroots movements and not say to the grassroots movements, you need to settle with what I give you. And if you look at Bernie Sanders' platform, you look at what he said on racial equality, he's basically a class reductionist. He's never really had a strong analysis that there is racism and white supremacy that is separate than the economic things that everyone experiences.
Okay, all right, that's enough of that, because I just can't let stuff play while misinformation goes across the screen. I can't. All right. Bernie Sanders is a class reductionist. I wonder if she even knows what class reductionist actually means, but that's neither here nor there. She said something there that Bernie doesn't know or hasn't addressed the unique differences between the economic, and I'm actually fixing up her sentence more than what she did. The difference between the economic exploitation that we all experience and the racial inequality that is disparate with and disproportionately affected, felt, so many words, disproportionately felt by African Americans. Now, on a surface level, if you never drill down in who Bernie Sanders was and is, then I can see how you could think that. And also, if you haven't drilled down on the nuances of what racism really is, then I can see how you would see that. This young girl woman is probably in college, so she's dealing with like an entry level understanding of not only economic exploitation but racism, because the driver, the core root of racism, and I will say this, I think I'm going to say this every episode going forward until people understand and realize it. The purpose of racism and white supremacy has always been about extracting wealth. It has always been the tool, the means to extract wealth. It has been the means to keep poor white people from ever teaming up with poor black people, to all look and realize those people are the ones who are keeping all of us down by the manner in which we engage in capitalism in the United States of America. If you don't understand that core connection between racism, white supremacy, and economic exploitation, then you will always be chasing after the shadow of economic exploitation, which is racism and white supremacy. Now, do we experience it differently? Absolutely. Absolutely. So black people have a unique experience because we're getting the brunt of all of the racial animus that has existed in America since its founding. Absolutely. So these issues need to be addressed separately, but to completely dismiss anyone's economic platform that could address the very disease that was the birth that gave birth to white supremacy in the first place. The very disease that gave birth to white supremacy in the first place is economic exploitation. Again, the analogy, we were not taken from Africa because they didn't like us. We were taken from Africa because they needed cheap labor to fuel the economic system here in the United States of America. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, then you have a legitimate qualm, not only with Republicans, but you also have a legitimate qualm with Democrats, and even more so a legitimate qualm with Hillary Clinton, because she represents the status quo economically. So if you really, young lady, want to affect change, you cannot just do it from the, I don't have a better word, but this is not the accurate word, but I'm going to say it anyway. The superficial experiences of racism. Somebody's going to soundbite me on that one and whatever. But if you, in context, the superficial experiences of racism, death is not superficial, but the reason, the cause, the very driver, the mentality, the way Darren Wilson's brain was shaped so that he could treat and suppress two things, that he can treat black people and suppress black people, but also pay no attention to the fact that he is just as much a victim of economic exploitation as anyone else. That is what racism does. It makes an enemy. It gives you a target that you can focus all of your anger, all of your bitterness about your poor plight in life, the fact that you have no money, the fact that you're living from paycheck to paycheck. It gives you a target to blame it all on. Go back and watch the video or listen to the audio of the interview I did with that conservative caller who was pissed off to the point of violence because of a woman in front of the line, in front of him in the grocery store using food stamps. When he doesn't realize that that person hasn't probably taken 5 cents from you this year, whereas Halliburton and BP and all these major corporations are taking the lion's share of your taxes. Racism gives white people and some black people the ability to look at someone else and never look at the real problem. If you can't connect those dots, don't take my word for it. There's plenty of black scholars that say the same thing. Cornel West is out there protesting in Ferguson, but he has diagnosed the same exact problem. If you cannot connect those dots, then you're really just going to always be chasing down the ghost of racism and never get to the man behind the curtain, never get to the wizard behind the curtain, which is economic exploitation. Now, does that mean that Bernie can only talk about economic exploitation and not directly address the problems in the black community? No. He has to do both and, right? Because you can't just talk about one thing and expect us to all be nuanced enough to see the difference, right? Some people just need it explained plainly. But that's what Bernie did. That's what he did after the Netroots Nation. And a lot of people are trying to attribute the fact that Bernie Sanders released this justice platform to the actions of these girls on Saturday. That's absolutely not true. There's no way in the world Bernie Sanders called his team from the stage and said, "You guys, we need to put together a plan to address social issues, racial justice, because they're giving me hell here." And then 30 minutes later, they put it out. He had been working on this since Netroots Nation. And this is why I say, if you didn't get orders from the national chapter of Black Lives Matter, then nothing about that was strategic. But I want you to listen to something else here. Let's listen to a little bit.
So we want to continue to push him on that.
So let me ask you, what candidate then do you support? What candidate speaks most to the changes you and your organization feel are necessary at this point?
I personally don't support any of the candidates. And I think it's a false narrative to say that you just have to settle for what the system has given us. We've said, no matter what your politics are, across the board, Americans have said continually, look, our politicians don't work for us. Our Congress doesn't work for us. The system we're in doesn't work for us. So I don't affirm any part of the system because I don't expect any politicians to do work.
Okay, stop there. Stop. Flag on the play. Flag on the play. Then what is your purpose, young lady? What is your purpose? If you don't affirm any part of the system, then how do you plan on accomplishing your goals, which must be addressed through the system? You can't, and this is what bothers me about the Black Agenda Report, Glenn Ford, and a lot of those people. They're actually to the left. They're liberal. They're ultra liberal. They're far left. They have great economic analysis and critique of capitalism in the United States of America. Hands down, they're over there with Noam Chomsky. They are brilliant, right? But when you surrender to simply being a protester and a critic, then you become nothing more than a person shouting in the wind. I don't have time for that personally. I don't have time to sit around and always criticize the system when the solutions to our problem must be implemented through the system. You are not going to overthrow the American government. You are not going to bring down the two-party system. At best, you can maybe get the third party to have some influence, but the influence is going to be a negative influence in a mathematical sense. The influence of a third party is simply going to take away. It's going to subtract from the two-party system, right? If Donald Trump runs as an independent, then he's not going to win. He's simply going to detract. He's going to subtract from the Republicans. If a Green Party candidate got strong enough, they're never going to win, but they will affect the system by subtracting from the Democratic side, right? That's a simple mathematics. But if you really want to change something, you must get into the system and change the system and not allow the system to change you. And I agree. We have a lot of politicians. Probably the majority of our politicians are either completely apathetic because they haven't been able to get anything done, which is why I'm finally glad that I never ran for office, because I realized that a lot of times when you get in office, you can't do all of the things that you idealistically want to do. But then you have that other set of politicians who are simply there for the game, who are simply there for the notoriety and simply there for the easy paycheck, because what do they work like? They work 180 days out of the year, right? So I get it. I get the frustration that we have with the political system, but do you understand you cannot accomplish your goals outside of the political system? All you will be able to do is perpetually protest. And at some point, you should not want to have to protest. I read something from DeRay McKesson. He said we should not have to protest. This should be solved. This should never have been a problem. But now that it is a problem, we need to solve it so we no longer have to protest. And that is the mentality that you have to take when it comes to being active and being a critic. Don't be a critic just for the sake of criticism, because then you're just blowing smoke, hot air. You're not being effective. You're not there to actually affect change. All right, I want to play another clip. This clip is addressing the rumors that she was that they were Sarah Palin plants, and I'm playing it because it's very important to something else. Here, listen up. Let's get that video. Where is that video?
Inundated with tweets that say you're not actually part of the Black Lives Matters movement. There have been others who actually have said, and again, who knows if people are anonymous or not. They are anonymous. We don't know if they're real or not, who say that you're actually a supporter of Sarah Palin. All of these conspiracy theories about who you are and why you were on that stage, from that you were plant from Palin to that you're not a part of the Black Lives movement. Who are you?
Yeah, my name is Marissa Johnson, and I grew up with Tea Party parents, and I no longer believe that anymore. A lot of people have progressed in this moment, and where Black people are, where all of us are being radicalized and changing our views on a lot of things. But I think it's really interesting to note that no one is really engaging with the content of what I said on the stage. I read out a lot of claims about Seattle and Seattle's racism and our national racism, and yet people are trying to go after my personal character and just derail and derail and derail. And that signals to me that the things that I said were spot on.
No, flag on the play. That's a non sequitur. That does not follow. Not at all. You just haven't talked to the right people. You're talking to either a troll or you're talking to the echo chamber that are all patting you on the back saying you did a great job. Now, let me go all the way back to the beginning. She was a Sarah Palin supporter in high school because her parents were Tea Party Republicans, which, okay, I'll get into that another day, but not right now. Here's the thing. The only reason I think that's important is because the youthfulness at a certain age, and I'm sorry, folks, you could disagree with me if you want to, but I've lived long enough, I'm old enough and young enough still. I'm young enough to still have some fire in me, but I'm old enough to realize that what I knew and what I thought I knew at 18 and 24 was only part of the story. And the fact that she was a Sarah Palin supporter, to me, doesn't say that she was a plant by conservatives to try to derail Bernie Sanders. It says that she is a young person who has not fully flushed out all the thoughts in their head, period. And so we give, and it's fine. You know, some people are charged with having to find their way as they go. I don't think Dr. King had a lot of people around him who were giving him counsel early on. When he was 26, he had to find his own way. But you have to be a qualified person. You have to be the type of person that can at least reflect on your decisions and see where you have been wrong so that you can grow as you go. Right. But we're ordaining a lot of people who are simply going and without any guidance. And I had a brilliant conversation with DeRay a long time ago, back in the winter. And he made it clear that there were a lot of leaders that they went to and sought guidance from. And a lot of the current leaders did not bring any advice. They didn't bring any support. They didn't bring any wisdom. One or two people actually gave them a little bit of wisdom, but the majority of the leaders that they sought wisdom from kind of shied away from them. And that's a shame. That's a shame, because now you have a bunch of young people out there with the energy. They have a noble cause, but they don't have any guidance. And I'm still waiting for the adults in the Black Lives Matter movement to bring some guidance and some organization. And I think the leaders that could bring that leadership and that direction and that guidance, I think they were all being arrested on Monday. You know, they were too busy being arrested, too busy being accosted by Oath Keepers to actually even address this issue, which is why the founders, which is why whoever is in charge of Black Lives Matter should have brought the correction to these young ladies. Now, you see the nexus that I exist. You see the problem that I have, because I absolutely agree with the vision and the purpose, and I support I have supported and will continue to support. But when we're wrong, we're wrong. And somebody needs to call it out. And I've seen more caping. I've seen more people just trying to excuse it away. Matter of fact, one last thing before I take a quick break. I was listening to the podcast by This Week in Blackness by Elon James White and Imani Gandhi, I believe is her name. And they interviewed the same young lady. And they interviewed her about the reaction of Bernie Sanders' crowd, and how the crowd was yelling, tase them and arrest them and all of these things. And they were so shocked and appalled by the reaction of the crowd. And you could see the video where Marissa was breaking down on stage because, you know, she was quote, I have to shout at a no, I have to declare my life matters in front of a crowd of shouting racists. You can't, people. This is where I jump off the boat. You can never divorce your actions from the results of your actions. I won't let the narrative of Michael Brown start with the confrontation, because you cannot divorce the fact that Darren Wilson drove up on them, and the very first thing he said to them wasn't, hey, gentlemen, get out of the road. It wasn't, fellas, what are you doing walking in the road? It wasn't, hey, could you guys get out of the road? It was, get the F out the road. You cannot divorce those initial actions from the end result. You cannot divorce that police officer in Texas who created the confrontation with Sandra Bland from the result of her death. However she died as a result directly connected back to his actions of provoking a situation and having a big ego and a gun. So if we're not going to divorce their actions from the results of their actions, then I'm not going to divorce these two girls, their actions, from the results of their actions. Could Bernie Sanders' crowd have been more gracious? I don't know that I would be. I don't know that I would be. So I can't say that they should have been more patient, because you have to understand, you cannot collide with someone's self-worth. You cannot collide with someone's dignity. You cannot collide with their pride and expect them to do what these girls say do, which was bow down. You can't expect people to bow down in humble submission. Oh, you want to say something? Oh, well, let's back up. Let's all give you the stage. Oh, you brilliant scholar, you. What do you have to say? I'm sorry we even gathered here to talk about Social Security. We should have never even gathered here. We should have just passed and just waited for you to speak. Speak, oh fearless leader. Do you really expect any human being to behave in that manner? Because you won't behave in that manner. I won't behave in that manner. You come to my event that I set up. I don't care who you are. I don't care your ideology. If I paid money and organized this, I'm sending your ass to jail. Period. And that's coming from one of the most liberal progressives that you're going to know. So to act all surprised and say, oh, Bernie's crowd shouldn't have been so cantankerous. They should have been more patient. You guys are asking something of them that you probably would not do. I know I wouldn't do, and the girls on the stage would not have done. Simply put, listen, allyship, I tweeted this. Allyship is not anyone being subservient to another one. It is not anyone bowing down to another. You have to understand, equality, true equality is an ugly thing. True equality means that we are both allowed to compete. You know, I don't have to submit to you. You don't have to submit to me, but we're going to have a constant collision of ideas and beliefs and outcomes and goals. So to have this expectation that you can get on stage and shut something down without the ramifications of someone else's emotions speaks to immaturity and the lack of experience. That's what it says to me. And for Elon's show, listen, I think they have fallen into the same exact thing that they complain about with regard to white supremacy and racism. You cannot create a narrative. You can't start a narrative in the middle of the story. The reaction of Bernie Sanders' crowd is directly connected to the actions and the behavior of those two girls who ostensibly are connected with Black Lives Matter. I still have not heard a confirmation from Black Lives Matter that they actually co-signed this event. So I won't credit them completely to Black Lives Matter, but it is time for somebody, an adult in the room, to come back and say that they need to sit, those two, they need to sit, that tactic, they need to sit down. They need to sit down for every reason that I've explained over the last 2 days, and I'm not going to regurgitate it at this point. All right, folks, I'm going to take one more quick break. And when I come back, I want to ask you a philosophical question that I think is, it is important with regard to ISIS I have not been able to talk about international relations much, foreign policy much, because there's too much going on here inside of the United States to deal with what I love to deal with, which is international relations. But there are conversations being had that people are actually suggesting that we start to talk with ISIS diplomatically. We'll be back.
You're tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Join the conversation, 857-600-0518.
Looking for the right business opportunity? Need the right product, the right marketing plan, and the absolute best training in the world? Well, look no further. The Elite Team. Every leader in time excels. They believe the key ingredients in becoming successful in life and in business are just a keystroke away. Go to www.eliteteamsite.com. That's www.eliteteamsite.com. The Elite Team has a system in place that will move you closer to achieving your goals and dreams. Visit www.eliteteamsite.com or TonyFlemingEnterprises.com today.
College is important, but it can also be expensive. College Planning Services is a group of educators, administrators, counselors, and other licensed professionals that work together to provide the necessary services, networks, and information to reach students that are serious about getting a college education. College Planning Services partners with financial institutions, corporate sponsors, and other major players in the global market to strategize in building a pool of information regarding financial aid, scholarships, and funding information to assist students in preparing to access the essential resources to build upon their path to an educational future. Learn more at collegeplanningtoday.com and let us help you start your college career.
Do you want to take your business to the next level? Ultimate Business Solutions provides the support you need to increase your customer base and sell more products and services online. Specializing in graphic arts, web development, and internet marketing, Ultimate Business Solutions creates the face of your business. If you're looking for a custom logo, dynamic website, or popping marketing material, call Ultimate Business Solutions today at 404-704-2197 or visit www.ultimatebizsolutions.com. Ultimate Business Solutions. Let us create your future.
Do you have tax issues, owe back taxes, or need tax relief? Contact L&B Tax Service today. L&B offers you over 15 years of expertise and first-class tax service for individuals, professionals, and business owners. With nationwide service, you can easily find a location near you. Contact one of our tax professionals through our website, lbtaxservice.com. That's www.lbtaxservice.com. L&B Tax Service Incorporated. Tax professionals that you can trust.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show.
All right. Welcome back. Just reading a couple of messages here. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about those yet. I shouldn't even mention them. I want your opinion on something, and I could tie this back to Black Lives Matter and Bernie, but I'm gonna talk about it in isolation because I was reading on Al Jazeera conversations that are starting in different circles and different diplomatic circles around the world, not here in the United States, but in Baghdad and where was the other nation? I don't want to call the wrong country, but conversations have begun discussing whether or not we should start conversations with ISIS, whether or not we should actually open a dialogue with them. And you know what? I don't know if I am not a person that's peace by any cost. And I want to know your opinion. Do you think that that the international, when I say we, I'm talking about the international community. This is nothing coming from the Obama administration, nothing coming from any U.S. diplomat. This is all internationally. Do you think that at this point, because here's the reason people say that we should start talking. They say that we should start talking to ISIS because no one is willing to commit troops. No one is willing to commit ground troops to go over there and destroy ISIS from the ground. We've been bombing the hell out of them from the air, but that hasn't crushed them. The only way we're going to be able to stop them is if we put troops on the ground. And as much as I'm opposed to putting troops on the ground, my question to you is, if it came down to giving ISIS legitimacy and ISIS actually becoming a state in the international sense, if it came down to that versus putting American troops on the ground, where would you fall in that conversation? Leave me some comments. I want to know. I want to get all your feedback and your opinion, because, you know, if I say too much, then you guys will realize that I am who I am. I don't know that we can give in to that, you know, but then you're met with a decision. Do you send in troops to destroy them? Because if you're not going to send in troops, then they're just going to continue to grow as much as we've been bombing them. So here's your choice. Option A, send in troops because to hell with that. We'll never negotiate with terrorists, bomb the hell out of them from the air, put our best troops on the ground and destroy them and crush them like we crushed Iraq. Incorrectly, we should not have crushed Iraq, but with the speed that we crushed Iraq, we need to send in troops because we will never negotiate with a nation, with a state like ISIS. We will never allow a state of ISIS to formally be recognized and formed. Or B, no more wars. No, we've had enough. If the cost of peace is for us to talk to ISIS, then let's talk with ISIS. That, my friends, should be a master's level final exam. That's a hell of a question, because either way you go, you're really going to be stuck on a bad decision. You know, there is no good outcome with that. And so I think as you answer that question, you would start to understand whether or not you are as peaceful as you think or you would like to be. You know, I've never proclaimed to be a pacifist on any level. I believe that there's some people in the world that just need to be killed because, as Alfred said on The Dark Knight, some men just want to see the world burn. And those type of people we could do without. I don't celebrate war, but then there are just some people who, come on, Osama bin Laden, he needed to be taken out. But do we commit troops to it? Are you so committed to peace that you're willing to talk with ISIS? I'm not going to answer that question. I think you already know where I fall on the spectrum, because, you know, I don't, you know, and it's not a matter of ego, but it's a matter of pragmatism. If you allow something like that to happen, what does that say about the international community? What does that say about the world that we're trying to frame? That we allow a nation of violence, and I'm only calling them a nation because if we start conversations with them, then that is the very first step in them becoming a legitimate nation. That's your homework for today, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think ISIS? Do you think that we should peace at any cost, no troops on the ground whatsoever, and the price of that is for us to actually start having diplomatic conversations with ISIS? Or are you less pacifist and less peaceful than you think and really struggling and saying, you know what, maybe we're going to put some troops on the ground and because hell, we will never allow something like ISIS to take root. That's your homework for the day. Leave your responses in the comment section. I will come through and grade them all accordingly. I want to thank our Patreon. Hey, it is what it is. First of all, let me back up. Follow me on Twitter at the BPD Show. You can support the show without spending any money. You can support the show by going to read all of our blog articles, going to read all of by subscribing on YouTube, by following us on Spreaker, by liking the Benjamin Dixon Show. That is actual support. Every time you read an article, every click counts. You know the game. So if you don't want to spend money to support the show, absolutely, go to all the free outlets and read my stuff, because my stuff is pretty good, if I say so myself. Then if you like what we're doing and you want to become a Patreon, then and you want to support financially, I want you to go to patreon.com/the BPD Show, and you can sign up to be a Patreon. And I'm pulling up an email here because I wanted to just thank Paul. Paul is one of our very first Patreons. He's committed to supporting us on a monthly basis, and that will help me get rid of those atrocious commercials in the middle of the show. I absolutely hate them. I just want to talk to you guys straight up. I think that's it. I'm just rambling at this point. Guys, you have a great day. I'll see you next time.
And until that moment comes, when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity, which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment.
And we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
Which we need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.
YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Catch you next time.